Tableau 25.1 features have been announced. In this video, we're going to go through them as I usually do, and I've got a bit of housekeeping to do at the beginning of this video as well. So as ever, let's get stuck in. Okay, so 25.1, the page is up, the coming soon page is up. This is typically the page where Tableau sort of headline with the features they're going to release in this release. But there's a couple of things to actually call out with this particular release. And I think it's a trend that's going to continue going forward. The first thing is that it feels like a lot of the features on this list, we're going to go through it shortly. A lot of the features on this list are actually already live. They relate partly to Tableau Pulse and partly to Tableau Cloud. But what's obvious is that some of these features are being rolled out as and when they're ready on Tableau Cloud and also on Tableau Pulse. So as we go through these, we'll try and call that out. But just in case you're watching this video or you're looking at this page and you're thinking, when are these going to be coming out? Some of them are already live, so you can go ahead and use them. The other thing is that this release also includes Tableau Server. If you recall, Tableau Server only comes out every other release, and additionally Tableau reduced the number of releases from 4 till 3, so we only have 3 releases. Server skips every other release, so I should say Salesforce are alternating releases. So I think we got a 24.2 release last year. There was only 1 release last year for Tableau Server. So this year, Tableau Server, you're lucky you get one in 25.1 and again in 25.3. So in terms of the release date, I typically kind of, straw polling the previous, 6 releases I've been tracking. Typically when we get this page, the release typically drops at least 8 to 10 weeks after. So I'm sort of thinking mid-March for this, but I don't have any official dates. It's just me guessing off the top of my head. It could happen sooner. And as I've said, some of these features are already live. So really it's just a rolling release. Anyway, with all that said, let's start looking at this list. Okay, so as we scroll down the page, I think one thing I want to do right off the bat is just understand how many of these are for Cloud and Pulse and how many of these are for desktop, because I think there is an interesting sort of split in the community about what people are interested in. I think for those of you who are interested in desktop only features, you'll start to realize that some of these releases actually benefit the whole platform and some of them don't. So if I go into this list, you've got a little drop down, and this isn't always scientific, but if I select Tableau Desktop, you'll see that there's quite a few capabilities here. If we just scan them very briefly, some of these are familiar. We've heard of them before. Key pair authentication for Snowflake is something that we've heard of before, but there's some meaningfully new things in here. Custom themes, I think that's going to be a huge one. Info sending for relationships being improved, and a fair few others. So this is sort of the high level overview for that. For Tableau Server, we actually have quite a few features that have already been released in Tableau Cloud last year in 24.3. They just didn't come because there was no release for Server. So a lot of these are going to be quite familiar. They're just essentially coming through to Tableau Server. So you're going to get all of that benefit as well as anything that was due for this release as well. And then if we go to Tableau Cloud, this is going to have a lot more items. The thing about Tableau Cloud is it includes Tableau Pulse. So Tableau Pulse, you see, dominates this page. There's quite a lot of changes to Tableau Pulse. Interestingly, I think most of these, if not all, are already live now. I actually just did a video which will be going live either after this video or before this video, covering some of these changes, some of the key changes. It's impossible to cover each and every one of them one by one, but nonetheless, yeah. These are mostly live. For the rest of this, there's quite a lot of meaningful changes here. So we're going to go through this in this video now. I like doing this because it's a good way to learn some of what I think the key themes are going to be. And also, I think there's always some interesting sort of trends. The number one thing I kind of pay attention to here is like the order of this page and what's gone where. I don't know if there's some sort of logic that I'm not aware of, but there does seem to be like a deliberate choice to have put certain features further up. So let's start from the beginning. The first one is refresh private network flat files. So there seems to be a lot of work happening with Tableau Cloud, specifically Tableau Bridge. And if you're familiar with working with flat files in Tableau Cloud, you'll know that you need something like Tableau Bridge in order for them to be able to work in a reliable way. Tableau Bridge is essentially a piece of software you install locally on a machine inside of your network, and its job is to push updates up to Tableau Cloud. That's essentially how it works. Now with this feature, it's saying here that you can essentially upload flat files to a UNC drive. Now, a UNC drive is essentially a drive with a universal naming convention. That's what UNC stands for. So when you use a shared drive at work or SharePoint, anything like that, occasionally behind the scenes, IT enables something called a UNC. Now, a UNC is a URL that specifically points to that server. And if that URL is public, then it stands to reason that Tableau Cloud can actually access that information a little bit more easily. So you can see the diagram they have here, which is sort of trying to give that sort of description. But I think Tableau Bridge is still involved. This is one of those things where you actually have to work with it hands-on to fully understand sort of how it's set up. But essentially, the ability to refresh flat files, I think it's something that a lot of Tableau Cloud customers still having a lot of pain with, and this is hopefully an improvement to that. I don't know the full details, so I'm not going to pretend I know every single detail here, but it's something to go and investigate, and hopefully the documentation is probably already out because Tableau Cloud just gets rolling updates. So we'll go ahead and check that out once it's live, or maybe give it a go and see how that works. Okay, the next one is prep query logging in resource monitoring tool. So the resource monitoring tool is an additional capability that you get with advanced management inside of Tableau. Advanced management gives you more oversight over your Tableau Cloud or Tableau server instance. And specifically here, what they've done is they've added logging related to Tableau Prep. So you can see if Tableau Prep is causing performance issues on your database. You can see an example here where you're able to just get a preview of what a query looks like. And so RMT stands for Remote Monitoring Tool, and now logs queries from Tableau Prep show up, so it's easy for admins to pinpoint issues that are potentially coming from those specific workflows. Okay, and then we get a bunch of Tableau Pulse updates. So I'm going to rattle through these because I saw something on Reddit where everyone was like, yeah, never mind Tableau Pulse, let's go to the real stuff. So I'm going to sort of take that as a hint that most people are probably going to want to, rattle through these. And it's an interesting choice that the next, I don't know, like 12 things on here are Tableau Pulse. But anyway, Tableau Pulse, the first one is multilingual support, being able to cover a whole range of new languages. I don't have the full list, but I believe there's 14 languages. If you check out the Tableau Release Navigator, you can get the details on that. But yeah, 14 new languages, which actually makes it a pretty meaningful deal because a lot of organizations are multinational. So covering at least 14 languages, those are bound to be the sort of largest 14, hopefully. And that's no mean feat, getting your product translated into other languages is a meaningful thing. Okay, Tableau Mobile Site Switcher, so being able to quickly switch between sites on Tableau Mobile. I haven't used Tableau Mobile in a long while. I think I maybe have to just do a separate video and just go through the Tableau app, which covers both Tableau Cloud and Tableau Pulse in one app. So yeah, we'll have to sort of give that a full run through. Tableau Pulse period change and breakdown chart. So here, identify what is driving your business with the period over period changes of dimensions in the breakdown chart on the metric detail page. So yep, this feature is already available. So essentially you get a little bit of context to each breakdown that gives you what's happening based on the period that the metric is sort of running off. So if you've got this month versus last month, that sort of period over period change is reflecting that change. So you can kind of get a context of what's going on. These are really sort of good bits of context. And I have to say, like, a lot of this capability in Tableau Pulse is actually quite useful because this is just the raw stuff that people are actually after. Sometimes people don't need dashboards, they just need answers, and being able to just have these numbers quickly, I think, is a really nice touch. Tableau Pulse drill down from breakdown or insights chart. So this is essentially being able to click on one of these charts. You can see this here. You can see this in the demo here, and it takes you into that specific thing. Now, the interesting thing about each of these is when you click in, you can actually follow these individual sort of drill downs as separate metrics. So it's actually quite nice to be able to do that as well. So you can kind of use your discovery approach as a way of finding new metrics that you want to follow. Maybe you want to follow them briefly just because there's some seasonal activity. It's a really sort of nice touch to have there. Okay, Tableau Pulse turn off expected range alert. So basically, you can turn off the ability to have Tableau Pulse alert you when there's unexpected ranges. Now, this is useful because you might have noise that's quite data that's quite noisy. Maybe there's a lot of volatility in your data just naturally. So being able to turn that off, I assume is quite a good thing. And so you'll remove that insight text, and it kind of maybe distracts you in the updates that you get. The next one is revamped homepage on mobile. So again, I need to try the mobile app, but just basically improving how that looks on mobile, which is kind of good. Tableau Pulse corner style for pulse metrics. So this is cool. This is cool. I've actually sort of seen this in my new video. So what they're basically saying here is you can enhance the look of pulse metrics. You can switch between corner styles for pulse metrics and the pulse dashboard object. So basically being able to choose whether you get like rounded corners or no corners, basically. It's basically a very, what's the word? It's an aesthetic change here. I've covered this in my video as well, so go ahead and check out the Tableau Pulse video I just put out. Link related content. Now this I didn't see in my instance of Tableau Pulse, so it's not in the video. I'll cover it later. But essentially you can link related content, like maybe a dashboard or maybe data source to a pulse metric. So when you go look at the metric, people get a link back to the Tableau Cloud instance. So that's really useful, I think, because it starts to suggest that there's a bit more of an ecosystem between Pulse and Tableau Cloud itself, even though Tableau Pulse uses the data sources, so that should already be there. Pulse group and sort in Slack digests. So this is interesting. I don't know how this works. I'll be brutally honest, I've not used enough of the Slack capability to be able to understand how Tableau Pulse is really engaging with that. I do have Slack. I actually pay for a Slack instance for my one-man band. I use it to automate a bunch of notifications into Slack because Slack just happens to work really well with things like Zapier. So I do have Slack. I'm going to probably spend a little bit of time just really understanding how the Tableau mobile app or the Tableau app in general works with that, and specifically Tableau Pulse. So we'll get a look at that coming soon. Tableau Pulse time range grouping. This is kind of handy. This is a mobile update, but again, it's available both on Tableau Pulse, the main feature, and also just here on mobile. It's nice on mobile because you can essentially group by time range. This means that any metric that sort of updates weekly is grouped into the week bracket. Anything that updates monthly is grouped into the month bracket, and then everything else is at the bottom. So it's a really nice sort of ability to have. Data source goals. This is nice. So basically being able to set goals by using a measure from your data set. Now the thing is, this needs a measure in your data set. So it needs a budget or it needs a target measure for you to be able to sort of use. And additionally, if you're building a good data model, this actually allows you to use different dates and different measures off the same data source in order to be able to get this to work nicely against your metrics. So this really sort of starts to bring forward the need to build good data models, because if you're just joining on these targets to a data set, you're probably going to have issues to do with the accuracy of the budgets and the accuracy of the numbers, and aggregations won't work as you expect. So really investigating the data model for this is a really good thing to do. Okay. Enhance question and answers. So this is an interesting one. This is basically, there's an ask capability inside of Tableau Pulse, and to be honest with you, what I'm seeing here is not what I was expecting to be. There is an enhanced ask capability that allows you to, suggest different time periods, suggest drill downs. But what I'm seeing here is something slightly more enhanced. So I'm not going to pretend to speak to know how this works, but it also doesn't say that it's already available. So this might be an upcoming feature. This might be one of the few Pulse features that isn't actually live, and you'll be able to see that soon. Okay. Connect to data using OAuth. So this is an authentication method. Essentially, it allows an enterprise company to use this form of authentication to connect to a data source rather than the standard sort of single sign-on that you might have. So this is quite useful. A good example, if you use Okta, that's an OAuth authentication mechanism. And yeah, you can use Okta to log into both Tableau and your data source, which means you don't have to keep authenticating every single time for each thing, which is kind of a nice thing to have. So that's good to look out for. Now this one, I have no clue what it's about. Share nodes across all cloud sites. Okay, so this is basically talking about private network data access. And I'm not sure if this is talking about nodes in terms of things like Tableau Bridge, because Tableau Cloud doesn't give you access to infrastructure. So when we talk about sharing nodes across all cloud sites, this to me can only mean nodes used for things like Tableau Bridge being shared across multiple sites, if that makes sense. So essentially, if you have the multi-cloud manager setup, you can essentially set up one network, one set of nodes, maybe 3 nodes that are responsible for doing Tableau Bridge, but you can actually share them across all the sites in your big Tableau Cloud instance. So I'm hoping that's what it is. A wild guess. If it's not, let me know in the comments. SAP HANA, bring your own identity provider and JWT. So leverage external identity provider and JWT tokens for secure centralized authentication to SAP HANA. So that's just a connector update. Very straightforward. External identity provider for Snowflake. This is good. I think this is coming through for Tableau Server. This is why it's in here. I think it was available in the previous release already for Tableau Cloud. So that's just something that's being passed through. Now, VizQL Data Service, not enough people talk about this enough. So essentially what VizQL Data Service allows you to do is use a data source as your web query engine to basically query data for your website. So instead of having to build your data twice, if you've got an analytical solution that's already feeding off your database, you can then use the VizQL Data Service API to query that data source to serve your website, rather than having to go and build a separate data pipeline for your website to have that data represented in a web format. So you've got an API that allows you to do that, and there's going to be a bunch of other things. And the interesting thing here is Tableau Pulse itself is actually built using this API. So it's a really sort of good insight to see how Tableau have not only built an API for themselves, but they've shared it with the community in order for them to be able to build their own solution. So you've got an example here where they're essentially querying a data source which has information about bikes, and it's pushing that through to a website, which is a pretty standard way to do it. And you can see they're calling column names, and they're sort of filtering as well, which is kind of nice. It's a nice little sort of showcase. It's hard to see these things and get sort of a meaningful insight. I think what you have to wait to see is how companies actually use this. You really want some sort of showcase customers saying, yeah, we run our website using this, and sort of showcasing that. And I think that will make more people sort of dial in. Okay, logical table data source filter. So when you're using logical tables in the data model, what this allows you to do is do a data source filter on a specific logical table level. And what that does is it has downstream impacts, essentially, depending on how you've built your model. So you can say, essentially, look, bring in data, build out your data model. You then have a date field in this example, and what you're going to do is you're going to say the scope is on sales, and you can even change that to sales and related tables, and tell it to only bring in certain ranges from that table. So that's really good, because you can really kind of narrow in on how the model kind of scales over time. So the thing about the data model that's really hard to sort of visualize is how the changes you make in one logical table have an impact maybe 2 or 3 tables down. You can see this particular model is kind of more complex. And so yes, this is sort of a really important concept to understand, because it can really massively improve the performance, especially when you get to maybe 2 or 3 levels down in your model and you're working with really large data sets as well. Multi-fact relationship info sending. So multi-fact relationship info sending is an enhancement to some info sending that was already taking place. What it's doing is essentially being able to tell you when it's giving you more intelligence on what is possible, essentially. That's the way to think of info sending. Think of it as some sort of highlighter or marker pen going around telling you what's possible and what's not. So if I just read this, easily navigate complex data models with Tableau's multi-fact relationship info sending, which proactively highlights how fields in your visualization relate across shared dimensions. This feature eliminates ambiguity by surfacing contextual guidance, empowering analysts to explore data confidently without needing deep model expertise. So basically the problem this is trying to solve is that with the data model, it's hard to see what you're doing, essentially, and it's hard to know what's happening behind the scenes. And the only way you can really do it, the only way I've known how to do it, is to troubleshoot by creating very specific examples. So I might create a mock data set, or I might go and test a specific scenario. And that scenario is typically something I might be able to validate by hand, literally on pen and paper, because I can see the number of rows, I can draw the connections, I can look at a summarized view of the table, I can even run some SQL on it and just say, okay, if I do this, I do this, I do this, I should be getting this. Why am I not seeing that? And then working through the problem. Info sending is essentially trying to help more people do that without needing to do that kind of detailed work. So it's giving you that intelligence up front so you can make some really good assumptions about what you should expect to see. So this is really cool. I've not covered the data model anywhere near enough. And honestly, it's because I'm scared. I'm scared of getting it wrong. And I've even had Kirk Monroe on the channel and we've talked about it. But my promise I've said to a couple of people is I am going to make what I'm going to call a masterclass on data modeling. In essence, I'm going to learn it as best to my ability as I can. And when I know that I fully understand all the edge cases, then I'll make a video. But the thing is with this is when you set out to teach something, that's when you really find out how much you know and how much you don't know. And at the moment, I'm still finding out how much I don't know. So when I'm ready to do that, I will do that. I've literally not touched even 24.2 updates on data modeling, because I just really want to get it right. I could do like a short video saying this is how it works, but then the problem with that is it's very easy for you to stumble into some behavior that you can't describe. You might then come to me in the comments and then ask, why is it doing this? And then I'll say, I don't know. And then you kind of lose sort of confidence in the product. So something I promised myself last year is like, I'm not going to cover something if I can't become decent at understanding it and decent at explaining it. So that is why I haven't done any videos, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, data model accessibility. So this is essentially accessibility settings around data modeling, being able to navigate the logical tables and relationships using accessibility. This is primarily for the web as well. I think the browser typically tends to support these pretty well. User attributes and native LWCs. So this is a funny one. You can tell someone from Salesforce wrote this, because I bet you're watching this video, like, be honest, if you know what LWC is, go in the comments and say, I know, okay? Because I bet you no one knows what LWC is. The only reason I know this is because I just so happened to have read something yesterday that used this acronym and actually explain it. LWC means Lightning Web Component. And that's a Salesforce term. So user attributes and native Lightning Web Component. So user attributes and native Lightning Web Components allows developers to apply data security in Tableau's embedded Experience Cloud portals without writing custom code, by configuring user attributes directly in the admin area and selecting them in the native Lightning Web Component. Developers can streamline secure data access and focus on building better user experiences. So yeah, if you've written this, just add Lightning Web Component and people will get the message. Or I'm wrong and I've just told everyone the wrong thing. So let me know as well in the comments. Customizable Pulse Web Component. So this is interesting. The customizable Pulse Web Component empowers developers to fully tailor the look and behavior of Pulse by applying custom colors, fonts, and filters through code. With two-way communication support, developers can integrate Pulse into their applications. So this is really just an embedding capability that allows you to bring Pulse into your own applications with custom styling and formatting, essentially allowing you to reskin Pulse to your desires. Okay. Exchange connectors. So the Tableau Exchange continues to grow. I think this is another really great place to, really become up to date on what's going on with Tableau. You've got accelerators, which are essentially templates. You've got extensions, which essentially do things with your dashboard. You've got Viz extensions, which are essentially new charts. And then you've got connectors, which allow you to connect to data sources. We have new connectors from DBT, Databricks, and MotherDuck. These are all sort of very prominent companies. I think I've heard of all of them. And yeah, they've all got connectors here that essentially, well, they've built the connectors to essentially talk to their platforms. Tableau gives them an API to build data connectors, and they've gone and done the work with their systems to have these things work. So basically there'll be some instructions to follow. You'll add the connectors and it should work like a native application essentially. So that's good. It's not quite the same as a native connector that Tableau have built for a particular database, but it's pretty close to that experience. So go ahead and check those out. Google BigQuery enhancements, ITAR support. So I don't know what ITAR is. Google BigQuery Private Service and Service Connect and Customer Managed Keys ensure ITAR compliance with Private Service Connect URIs. URIs. What is a URI? I feel like I know what that is, but I've forgotten it. And custom managed encryption keys for Google BigQuery. Securely analyze sensitive data while maintaining control over encryption and network architecture. I have no clue, and I'm not going to pretend. So if you know what this is, let me know in the comments. This is like what I should be doing is I should have ChatGPT on the right hand side explaining these things to me. But I figured you could do that yourself, and also you could Google it. But the point of this video is just to go through it, and I don't want to make it too long. Bridge connectivity in Tableau Prep. Oh, that's pretty new. Connect to on-prem data behind your VPN or firewall directly from Tableau Prep. Transform your data and schedule refreshes effortlessly. So that's an interesting one. I'd love to know how that works, because the thing about Bridge is typically, obviously its data sources are going to be already available in Tableau Cloud. But if we're talking about being able to do it from Tableau Prep. I wonder if that means you can set up new flat files in Tableau Prep and then have it create the bridge capability within Tableau Prep. It's one thing I'll have to sort of go and play with a little bit more. Write to Databricks in Tableau Prep. So this is just essentially the connector. I wonder if this uses the capability in the extensions, because Tableau Prep is entirely kind of web only. So I say web only. It does have a desktop download, but that desktop download is built off web code. So when you see the connector for Databricks over in the Exchange, you can generally sort of expect it to work in Tableau Desktop and on Tableau Prep web authoring as well. So this is pretty cool. Input and output destination filters in Tableau Prep. Improve data governance by restricting Tableau Prep users to trusted data destinations. Use REST APIs to manage input and output permissions, ensuring security and preventing data leakage. So this looks like the ability to use REST APIs to sort of control how a data source is read into Tableau Prep, and also how it's written out. So you can essentially stop someone writing out something that they shouldn't be able to write out, even if they try to. So that's kind of a cool setup. Keep authentication. I think this is already available now, but it's coming to Tableau server. There have been a few bugs with this. It's worked successfully on Tableau web authoring, but when you try and do it on desktop, it's a little bit fussy. So I have not chased up on the bug that I've been following on that space. So we'll have a look at that. Now, this is a new one, Tableau Agent Follow-Up Suggestions. So Tableau Agent Follow-Up Suggestions streamlines your analysis by offering contextual next steps after creating or modifying calculations. If Tableau Agent cannot complete a task, it provides alternative suggestions to help you stay on track. So this is useful because before, when Tableau Agent did its thing, it kind of just fell flat. It didn't do it, and it didn't do anything else, or it tried too hard to pretend it could. This kind of AI confidence thing you sometimes get. So we really have to try this to understand how it works, but for now this looks pretty good. Tableau Agent multilingual support. So this is nice. Support enables users to interact with Tableau Agent in their native language. So what languages do we have here? French, Italian, German, Spanish, Japanese, and Portuguese. I think this is nice because a lot of AI agents primarily mainline English, but the problem is English isn't everyone's language. And the other thing you can have is that you can have this sort of issue where if you don't bring in other languages, the way people ask questions, it can actually be culturally different. So the way questions are phrased, the way you might ask for information, the way you might query information can actually sometimes meaningfully lead to sort of different outcomes if you don't understand language, especially when people are forced to, you know, translate in their heads from the language they speak to another language they're not familiar with, primarily English in this example. So being able to let people use the tool in their native language means you get a better quality set of questions going into the system, and it makes it more likely that it's actually going to do what you want it to do. So at least I hope so. So that's a good touch. This is actually quite big. Tableau Agent on desktop. So basically the Tableau Agent coming to 25.1 on desktop. I assume it's going to need cloud connections. There have been some features in the past that have been connected to cloud from desktop. So this is not something radically new. Essentially what would happen here is you have a data source. The data source needs to be published already to Tableau Cloud. And once that's the case, then you can use this AI capability to be able to work with that data source, because it's essentially just doing the exact same query, but it's coming back to your desktop portal window rather than in the browser. So this looks like it works good. I'll wait to test it. 25.1 is just around the corner, and we'll see how it works. Let's see how many we've got there. We've got a handful left, so let's try and sort of whistle through these. Tableau Agent for the data consumer. Tableau Agent for the data consumer helps dashboard viewers quickly understand insights through natural language summaries. Now viewers can ask Tableau Agent for a dashboard summary, making it easier to navigate, interpret, and quickly uncover insights. Now, this I think is a big deal, but the big but is I really hesitate with Tableau Agent. I've just done a video about AI and, you know, Tableau strategy. It's nearly an hour long, but I felt like if I was going to be critical of some of the capabilities in Tableau, I needed to really show my working all the way through. And the thing the challenge I have with Tableau Agent is when people ask questions and things go wrong, what happens next where is the burden? Where does the burden of work fall? And I think it's typically going to fall on the creators or the analysts who build these solutions in the first place. And given how frequently Tableau Agent wasn't actually getting things right, my concern was, you know, focused around this worry that actually we spend a lot of effort building trust with our end users, and then we put a product in front of them that does the opposite. So I'd be really intrigued to see how this works, especially if it's just for consumers, because consumers aren't building dashboards, they're not building things. So when it's talking about insights, what I'm hoping it's going to allow people to do is quickly ask a question, you know, about the data source and have it come back and maybe highlight information that's already on the chart. But if it's allowing you to sort of just wholesale ask questions about the data source that aren't visually there, then that will be interesting. Again, I don't know because I can't see, but that's going to be a very, very interesting change. I might have to get myself a consumer account to kind of try that out. Let's go to the next one. Tableau Cloud, Indonesia and Singapore region. So Tableau Cloud is obviously based in AWS or Hyperforce now. Pods essentially run in different regions around the world just for performance and infrastructure reasons. Indonesia and Singapore are two new regions they've added to that list. So pretty straightforward. Okay, the next one is default date number formats in web authoring. So being able to set the default number format, I think is quite good. I've actually seen this already by mistake. I was doing something else and I kind of just bumped into it. So this is a really nice touch. Being able to set defaults right from the beginning from the data pane, I think then means that your subsequent changes are going to be just much easier to do. And I think it will become more of a habit on web authoring to save you having to go through sheet by sheet to do it as well. So that's pretty good. This is a community idea, so that's really nice to have. Activity log for security events. This makes a ton of sense. Activity log, again, is something that you get through advanced management. Being able to have logs for the security events is pretty good because you can then scrape them, process them, store them, pass them, do whatever you need to. Keyboard accessible interactivity. This is kind of nice. So being able to use your keyboard to navigate some of the interactions is quite nice. This is a nice one. Again, another community idea, being able to have a project tree, essentially a folder tree like you'd have in a folder. Now you have that more readily available inside of the Viz portal. Recycle bin. This is a good one. So up until now, up until this feature, if you deleted something, it was gone for good. Now there's a recycle bin. So this is actually quite useful for a lot of reasons. A lot of people sort of didn't know that. A lot of people assume that, so they go delete something. Oh yeah, we'll just get it back. No. If you had Tableau Server, some people were doing whole server backup restores just to get something that a team had spent a lot of time on and had been accidentally deleted. So this is a really good one to have. Okay, Tableau Prep query logging in resource monitoring. Makes a lot of sense. I think we've seen this already. Server to cloud migration SDK enhancements. So this is a software development kit for cloud migrations, essentially, that allows you to build software on top of Tableau's APIs. And they've put in some enhancements essentially to make it more stable and run a little bit better. IDP generated token for SCIM. Man, there's a ton of acronyms in this that I don't fully understand, so I'm not going to pretend to know. So if you know what this is, let me know in the comments. Decouple email addresses from username. This is kind of good. Admins can enable Tableau Cloud users to update their email for notification purposes. Users may no longer have access to their stale email address inboxes or have created with a username pointing to an unresolvable inbox. Yes, by decoupling the username and email address fields, the users can keep updated to receive it. Okay, so basically, you've set up Tableau Cloud, you've gone and done it with an email that you no longer have access to. For example, you've changed your surname or you've changed something, you've changed your name, your email has changed. Essentially, by decoupling this, you don't have to go re-sign up to Tableau Cloud just to get back into something you already have. You can just decouple the two, update your email, and now you're pretty much good to go. It keeps your identity though, so your sort of IDs remains the same, but your email gets decoupled. Expanded extract refreshments. So this is kind of really good. So you can there's a permission to enable extract refreshes. That's kind of nice. Gives admins a bit of control as to who's running what and where. Custom themes. Now this is interesting. So I think this is something that was announced at conference, and this is the start of this capability rolling out. So basically having a style sheet, a theme you can then apply straight to your work and then have it already assume a bunch of different characteristics. But I think this is going to launch slowly over time. So this I think is why it's quite far down the list. We need to see this before we can assume what it can do, but I think this is a really good start. The table viz extension, this is really popular. One of my most popular videos actually has been enhanced. I think they're taking on feedback and they're enhancing it, so it's getting better as well. It is just a web application essentially running inside of Tableau, so they can enhance it. So they've done a bunch of different enhancements here. So reorganized columns, formatting controls, banding for columns individually, broader range of keyboard navigation, selection of headers and columns, and an added array of hotkeys for navigation in Tableau Cloud. So just improving it. I think if they keep improving it and doing what everyone asks for, this is going to become a really killer chart to have as a Viz extension. Activity log on Tableau Cloud Manager. So Tableau Cloud Manager is a new capability that tracks all your sites essentially that you have within your Tableau Cloud global world pool, as it were. Activity log on Tableau Cloud kind of gives you that context, so you can see here you have different sites and the activity logs are all coming in as well. So that's really kind of nice. Accessibility settings, customize your alerts. It says up here you can personalize your Tableau experience by deciding whether information or product alerts automatically dismiss or dismiss them but need more time to read. So basically how that dismissal behavior works is going to be customizable. Tableau Cloud Private Connect. Connect your AWS data to Tableau Cloud using the AWS private link for a secure, dedicated private connection that avoids exposure to the public internet. Admins can set up and configure AWS private link to their AWS accounts where data is stored through Tableau Cloud Manager, available in Tableau Cloud. Cool. Dutch language support. This is a new language, so this is actually pretty cool. I'm surprised it's taken this long, so that's good to know. Tableau Cloud release preview. Oh, so this is interesting. So get advanced access to functionality changes in Tableau Cloud. Understand how changes will impact your unique content, usage, and users before changes get applied to critical business content. Admins can select the release preview US West region when creating a site to get access to changes in functionality 3+ weeks in advance of other cloud sites. That's really good. So there's a release preview site in US East Virginia. So when you select a location, but do you have to have Tableau Cloud Manager? I guess everyone has Tableau Cloud Manager. They just have a different number of sites depending on the license they pay. So I think Tableau Enterprise and then Tableau Plus have different numbers. So everyone in the Enterprise will probably get this, which is good. I think Tableau gets like 3. So everyone gets this capability, which means you can create one site at least in this preview and you can try it and test it. So that's really good. Tableau Cloud Manager authentication enhancements, again improving how you get into that. So that's pretty much everything. We've done a 40 minutes here. I think if I edit this down, it's going to be like 35. We've zipped through it, but hopefully you've got all the timestamps below so you can see them. Okay, that's it. That's pretty much all the features here in 25.1. Obviously, when this release comes out, we'll cover it. I think this will be our last release before conference, so then the next release will probably be just after conference, if that makes sense. So March, this will come out, then we have April conference, then we'll get May, June, July being the next possible release. So this is going to be the last thing we get. It's pretty interesting because it means that since conference, everything we saw that was announced, well, it's going to be a good thing to see what's actually shipped between conferences, so we can actually talk a bit more about that down the road. Thanks for watching. I'm going to see you in the next one.